Welcome to the Feel Better, Be Better show. Today, Kate and Nevada will answer your questions and introduce new topics designed to help feel better and be better. These are raw conversations, but they will make a difference.
So, introducing the second show. No? He's still going to keep that in there. We're going to go set up some minds. Yo, mindset. Got you so good. Enjoy the show.
So, yeah, but I mean, we've talked about several conversations. Because while, I was stressing out everything, you've been practicing having a more positive mindset and like, okay, how can we fix the problem, or how can we move forward in a direction where, most of the time it's most likely they're gonna stay where I'm at, or it's gonna be positive in the end. And so, you had one of those situations this week with everything going on with your house stuff.
I know.
And yours was very different reaction.
I think you were almost mad at my reaction, and you really couldn't be because you started laughing at it. But you got to run into me, and I was like almost grinning ear to ear, going like, "Guess what? They totally denied me on fixing that whole thing or whatever." And you're like, "That's a huge mess. It cost you a lot of money. They did all this." I'm like, "I know, they won't listen." And I'm like grinning ear to ear, like, "Why are you?" You're almost like, "Why are you happy about this?" And I'm like, "I got nothing to. I got nowhere to go but up now." I'm like, they messed up. They've backed themselves down to the fact that they've proven, confirmed, reconfirmed, gone through all this stuff saying that it's right. Well, it's wrong. It's not even close. I know it's my stuff. They're just going through their processes. They're not even looking into that, I can guarantee you. And they're pulling out, oh, it's our policy and this and everything. I'm like, yeah, the policy does not go to basically hurt me. Mm-hmm. And I may literally not get any result from it. I may just literally get screwed from it, which is, it happens in life. I know, I'm sure I'm supposed to, go to every hill and every person around and basically tell them, oh, it's me story. But I don't know how that's going to help me. No. So in my situation, they may totally block me. I may totally lose a deal. And you can say, why are you smiling and happy about that? Well, I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to do whatever I possibly can to get that thing fixed correctly. Mm-hmm. If I can't get it, I can't get it. But I don't know why I won't be able to. And so with that, I get to have a little bit of fun because, I don't think it's my error. I don't think it's my mistake. And I think I can make a lot of people have to go jump through a lot of hoops just for something that's as simple as just a reporting error.
Yeah. And
who knows? Might come out in my favor a big way. So I'm like, again, it kind of comes back to like we were talking about with your hormones there. It gave me the information. Yeah, it may have been bad information, but now I know. I know what the situation is. I know where everybody's standing from that. So now I can do what I need to do to be able to try to solve the problem or at least get some kind of result. But up until that point, I didn't know. It was like, they're working on something. They're going to try. Well, there's nothing to act on that. Now I have stuff to act on.
Yeah.
Which I can do something about that. So I'm happy. It's my control now.
Yeah. But knowing you for as long as I've known you, we've known each other 11, 12 years. There's a lot of things in your life that haven't worked out. And so, you've kind of had a lot of practice dealing with like, okay, if it doesn't work out, I know that I'm going to be okay because I know that I can figure out a way to keep moving forward. And if it does work out, like, it's better for me in the long run to be in that position and know that I can get a positive out of it.
Well, you kind of mentioned it earlier about how different I am on being able to do that. And it kind of made me really think. I look back on it now as an older man, even though I don't act like it. But back to when I was younger, back to previous jobs, back to even in high school and stuff like that when I was in sports. And I think it's pretty much been that entire time. My mom and dad were very successful. I was a very good athlete. Got good grades. I really didn't break the rules that much. I tended to get along with people. But the one thing that I always kind of, when I look back on it, was always like I got singled out for stuff that nobody else got in trouble for. I always got, where, yeah, you did great on this, but, you could have done this. It was always like there was one more thing. It was always like you couldn't do it. And then I used to get in trouble for stuff that nobody got in trouble for. And I remember asking, like, dude, Joe did that like 7 times and has had nothing happen to him. Why am I getting, heavy punishment on this? And I don't think, I'm sure that somebody said they were just, trying to make sure that I would never do it again because I was impressionable or something, or they really thought they wanted to make sure that I would never think I could do that, which sounds great in theory. But I think one of the biggest ones I run into on that one is I think they were a little bit intimidated by my ability to actually relate and lead. I wasn't a big raw leader. I mean, like, I'm not gonna sit there and yell and scream and be in people's faces. I just always did it by action and by helping out. It's funny how you don't realize it when you're in it that you're doing that. I see it now when I was working with some of my employers where they would, it was weird. It was stuff they would get mad about, or they would never let me do stuff that I was really good at because it was almost like it was impeding on their abilities. To the point now where I look back and I'm like, I think they were just really had a problem with the fact that I could get stuff done when they could walk in and say, because I said so, and couldn't get it done, where I had none of that authority. I just go in and be like, hey man, I get it, you're having trouble with this, whatever, but if you don't do that, then I got to do this, and they're going to find out about it, and this is going to happen, and that's happening, and it's going to be a huge mess when all we got to do is spend 5 minutes to get this done. And they would do it after the person in charge of them walked in and, I need you to get that done right now, or whatever. And I think they just defaulted to the fact that they're like, oh, I gotta show I'm in charge again. And I was never like going in and I was just trying to keep stuff working. Mm-hmm. So I think it's gonna be real interesting as I'm kind of slowly venturing into this stage in my life where I'm gonna become more of that leader, and how much stuff can I do. And now I'm kind of on this thing where I'm kind of mentoring, where I'm like, no, I want more people to take responsibility, to be, where it's taking ownership of whatever they're doing and trying to basically lead them into that kind of mindset. And that to me is, I'm really been focusing a lot on the leadership roles, the mentoring roles, the coaching roles, and stuff like that. How can we create a lot more people that have that kind of drive and those kind of feelings? Mm-hmm. But with all that being said, those roadblocks were always put in front of me, because I'm going to bring them back now real quick. So every time something would happen, it would be like, yeah, I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to do, whatever. Oh, nope, we're going to cut you off and you're not this. Okay. Well, I just got to find a way. So I'd find another way around it. And what that always kind of taught me is that there was always, you can take any situation and just bog yourself down and make it worse, or you can take whatever bad situation is and try to make it better. And so I always just kind of realized that some information is going to give me something to be able to act on. I can remember specifically on one of the jobs that I worked at as a bartender, big time job. And somebody was stealing liquor. I don't know if they were drinking, I don't know if they were giving away. I don't care. It wasn't my thing. I wasn't stealing. But they suspected it was me. Again, coming back to that whole thing, being held to a different standard. They had no reason to suspect me, but for some reason, I was the one that was suspected. And the keys to the liquor cabinet went missing. I was the one that found it. I was looking for the keys, and I couldn't find them. So I went and I said, hey, where are the keys at? I was trying to stock up for the night. I had just gotten there. So they sent me home, took all my shifts away, and basically de facto accused me of basically stealing, which was, I really thought was funny. I'm like, let me see if I get this straight. I stole the keys and then reported them missing. And it was one of those things where they're like, well, you're
covering your tracks real good.
You're that smart that you would make sure you made it seem like it wasn't you. And I'm like, or they were just missing, I'm like, whatever, or somebody else stole them and I found them, but okay, whatever. So anyway, I could have gotten all crazy, but that job was already starting to, bother me anyway. So as soon as they sent me home, I actually ran down to a couple of friends that I knew and started applying for a different job. And it was 2 days later that the owner's nephew or something, who was, the one that he brought in to lean on or whatever, that had accidentally taken the keys home. And so that's when they're like, hey, you got your shifts back. And I'm like, hey, I got a different job, at which point it became, what? I'm like, dude, you just accused me of stealing because I found something. I'm like, I'm not going to come work for you And I think the moral of that story was really funny though. If I remember correctly, it's been a long time, but I think the nephew was actually the one stealing. So, and I don't think he was doing that with the keys. I think he was just giving away drinks, which I mean everybody did in the bar world. But I mean, it was just one of those things where I just thought it was kind of super poetic justice on that one. But that's just another key example of they had no basis, no possible. I'm in there going like, dude, they're missing. What's the deal here? Which is what you would want somebody to do. And here I am getting the short end of that stick, and I could sit there and just bog down on the fact I'm just like, everybody just accused me for everything. I'm just a big giant magnet. Everything just falls wrong for me on that stuff. And what I do instead, I went and got another job. Funny part was, it was a better job, made better money, enjoyed it way more, and then that actually spun into another job that was a better job situation. So I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, I just wouldn't solve the problem. I could let them get to me, but it doesn't do me any good. So I think Jocko does it all the time. It's like his whole thing is no matter what information you bring him, he says, good. It's like, yeah, your house is on fire. Good. Did we need to call the fire department? I mean, because he knows the information. House is still gonna be still be on fire whether you know it or not. But if you know the information, you can do something with it. And I think that's really hard to get through people.
Yeah, well, I think it's easy for people to have a first knee-jerk reaction of being emotional about the situation and getting bogged down in it, and then it's kind of hard to just look at the information as information and process it. Like, I know for me, I take a little bit to be mad and kind of like, oh, this sucks, but then, you know, after a little bit, get through that and then can go through that process of working around the problem and making stuff work because, you know, life kicks crap out of you, and that's just kind of how it goes. I mean, we kind of even had that conversation with some stuff with my dad earlier in the week too. I mean, we had to talk about mindset shift and all of that, but I think that's something that the faster you can get to that, the better off you are. But it's hard. It's hard when emotions are involved.
Yeah.
Especially if it's not your normal train of thought. Like, you have to reteach your brain.
Yeah. I mean, I think it takes getting a little older too. I mean, you kind of need a little bit of humble pie served to you. You need a little bit of reflection, a little bit of experience. Definitely helps. I mean, I definitely didn't have mindset stuff when I was a teenager. I mean, my only mindset then was to do whatever they told me not to do. I mean, I was a teenager after all.
That's true. I mean, yeah, and the more experiences you have, the more you realize, like, whatever suckiness happens, there's always a way to work around it.
Well, I think one of the craziest...
You can make it through.
Think of anybody you know. I mean, all the people you know. Yeah, you may have, like, that one friend that talks about the good luck that they have, but it's usually specific. Like, they just win drawings or something like that. It's never, like, overall everything's just amazingly lucky. No, it's usually specific. If they consider themselves lucky, it's usually something very specific. Like, they just get lucky in sports, or they just get lucky in, like, drawings and stuff. And that's maybe like one of, you can maybe think of like one friend of yours that would actually say that about themselves.
My sister.
Yeah, I know you have one. I don't even know if I have one. Everybody else, though, if they happen to win a drawing, right, they would be like, this never happens to me. I'm never the one that wins. You know, no matter what's going to happen, if they're waiting on their test results, it's going to be like, oh, with my luck, it's going to be I have cancer. You know, or... you know, I can't believe that car actually started. Mine always breaks down. You know, everybody always has bad luck. It's so hard to change that mindset over to the fact that bad things are going to happen. It's how you react to them. I mean, like, you've seen me multiple times here where my truck is broke down. It's a 20-year-old car. It doesn't have much life left in it. It's going to break down on the regular basis. And somebody can say, why don't you buy a new one? Sure. Just pay money all over the place. I mean, I know I probably could, but it still runs good and I don't use it that much. I need it for when I need my truck. So it's almost crazy for me to go like, man, every time I take this thing, it just doesn't work. I just have the worst luck. When realistically, it should have problems. I mean, I'm doing so many different crazy things financially. I should have a financial issue. I mean, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of, you can only take so many times of where something's going to get messed up. and you're gonna have to work through it.
Well, I think we look at that too with like the more and more rentals that we own or manage, the more likely stuff's gonna go wrong in rental, and like that you gotta fix.
Air conditioner's gonna go out.
Conditioner goes out, and you gotta pay a bunch of money and do that, or you
Hot
get
water
a
tank.
pipe burst or whatever, or you have a bad tenant that doesn't pay, or you have somebody who wants to move out at a really inconvenient time. Like the more that you have, the more likely one of those is gonna go wrong. You just increase your odds. Crazy.
Well, I mean,
Crazy how that works.
with the number of rentals I have, I mean, I had a month, I think it was a couple months ago, where I didn't have a repair on one of my houses. We didn't send anybody out to give her a repair.
What?
And I remember kind of looking back going like, whoa, I was lucky. Whereas anybody else, it would be, I'm unlucky to have the repair. And I'm just like, there's so many houses. Something's going to go wrong at one of them.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I mean, you can take it and be like, all right, what's wrong? You know what I mean? Or you can be like, all right, what's going on, man? Oh, we need that? Okay. I'm going to call, Jim or whatever, and we'll have him out there. And go taking care of the problem. Take care of the problem. It's done. You're out. Oh, it's good. Or you can sit around and complain about it for multiple days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then I think one of the other ones, I don't know if I know we talked about it a little bit, but I don't know if it really hit home. How much of it are the perceived expectations that you have of other people?
A lot.
And I mean that by the fact of like, okay, my husband or wife, or my brother or sister, or my mom or dad, or my boss, or just my friend, they expect me to be like blah, fill in blank, whatever you want. They don't want me. They don't think I should act emotional. They don't want to see me actually bounce a check or have a this or whatever. I mean, how many of those expectations do we have running through us all day long? I mean, you can drive yourself crazy on that one. But it's really interesting if you can break down what your expectations of yourself are. Does it really make a difference on what their expectations are? I mean, it's interesting. Some people will be like, well, I may not be friends with them anymore. Well, are they really your friend if they're holding you to a standard that you don't want to be held to? I mean, it's an interesting argument.
Yep.
I mean, I've had plenty of people that get mad at me, get angry at me for kind of the way I handle things. I mean, it happens. But I also get like 10 that like me for the way I handle things. So do I want to change myself to please the 1 to lose out on the 10? I would almost rather be who I am and get people around me that like me for that than to try to change myself for that one. I can still be friends with them. I can still respect them. I can still, you go do what you're doing. But that's that's a heavy mindset scenario where you're just like, you almost have to accept that really good friend of yours may not be the right person for your life.
Yeah. Or I think about one of the prompts that you gave me was looking at something from someone else's perspective. I mean, because especially this instance in general was, from like my dad's perspective, because, growing up, when you look at your parents, you don't necessarily think of them as a person.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you talk about spouse and other people, but I feel like when you kind of get an adult or with your peers, you feel a little bit more of it, even though you maybe not great at it. But parents are really hard in general. But from their perspective,
Yes,
like,
mine are horrible.
What? Your parents?
My parents. You've been around with my parents.
Yeah.
It's just I see the whole time going, how do you have this relationship with your parents?
Well, I come from a person with no relationship from either parents until here recently. So,
Yeah, but even so, you've seen us together. We're
not a whole
way
lot
more
to
friends than anything.
compared. But
Yeah.
yeah. But no, I mean, it's hard because it's hard to imagine other people sometimes with their own motives and their own desires and their own things they want or need or regret or things they've done wrong. And I mean, that's difficult.
Well, I mean, I don't want to totally single out your dad here, but I mean, so he's now a single adult male who's had some accidents. Yeah, that motorcycle accident, which I'm sorry, if you've ever been in an accident in a motorcycle, it's going to be serious.
Yeah, it was rough. It was really rough.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm sure that had him reflect a little. But let's face it, I mean, all of us are running around all the time. we may be cognizant that something can go wrong, but we're assuming that tomorrow is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit different when you really get put in your face that tomorrow may not be there.
Yeah.
And that can drastically change what you see as important. How much insecurity is he holding as being a single, as being a single male, dating, whoever he's seeing?
Yeah.
How much insecurity is he facing from that? His kids, how are they treating him, and how might he be feeling from that? I mean, you can take it just from your daughter and how she might make you feel. How much can you amplify that over the age and the timeline of your dad?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of those things we just don't look at it from that perspective.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's lots of regrets too. I mean, it's easy to look back at everything that happened in your kid's life and regret how you handled certain situations. I do it already, and then my daughter's only 5. I mean, I regret how I act sometimes, or
some little decision that turned into a
Yeah.
very big problem.
yeah, or even just like little stuff like I'm like, oh God, hopefully it doesn't ruin her for life. I mean, it probably won't, but I mean, it's easy to look at everything you do and be like, well, that was probably the wrong thing to do in that moment.
Hmm.
But she doesn't know. She thinks I'm like this perfect person who doesn't have feelings that she can hurt, and
That's how most of us see our parents, though. 'Cause, I mean,
Yeah.
they're the ones telling us what's right or wrong. They've set the stage, they set the tone. They're the ones that are giving us an example of what to be.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, and of course, there's plenty of people that are do as I say, not as I do, which never works. And it's really hard to flip that gear and realize that they may be insecure about what they're telling you, maybe insecure about how much you love them, maybe thinking twice about what's going on in their lives. I mean, if they're getting into any kind of higher age, I mean, whether their brain function is working well enough, whether their physical functions are working well enough, their internal functions working well enough. I mean, that's a lot of, what's the right word, insecurities to be thinking about every single day. And a lot of them are. I mean, they raise their kids to go out and be on their own and have their own lives and do their own things, which sounds great, and that's what you're supposed to do as a parent. But your kid is gone doing that. They're busy. It's not that they don't love you. They're hammering out life. They're doing those things. But at the same side, it feels like you're kind of not important anymore. At the same time, your body's not working the right way. You're looking at things down the road that may not work out. You're looking at mental states that you're just like, I don't know, could I be completely dementia and not know what's going on? How would I know? How would you not know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting thing when you're looking at some of your older parents, what their perspective could be and how much of that is on them, but they've learned for years and years and years and decades to have how to handle that and not show it to their kids.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to act like my parents are. I mean, we talk about that kind of stuff because we don't. I mean, that's a whole different level. I think the biggest thing between my parents and myself is we just found a way to enjoy each other, and that's hard to do sometimes.
Yeah.
And we don't really judge each other. We ask each other for advice and recommendations, and we try to work with each other. We respect each other's schedules and responsibilities and things that are important to them. Which I mean, my parents have been retired for 6, 7, 8 years and are enjoying retirement life. So it's a whole different world. But I try to respect them. I mean, there's a lot of times I don't call until later in the morning. I'm like, I didn't know if I was going to wake you. And of course, my mom's always dying laughing. She's like, I've been up since 7 a.m. And I'm like, I get it. But I still, what if you decided you wanted to sleep in now? You have that option. I'm being respectful of her situation.
Yep.
So, what other crazy mindset stuff are we trying to get on here?
I don't know. I feel like those are kind of the major 3 things that have happened this last week.
Yeah, those were a little deep.
Very deep, very deep.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think the biggest takeaway is something to always kind of work on. It's nice. It's nice to have someone who can pull you back to.
I mean, it never goes away. I mean, you can sit here and say like I handle it really well, but when I first had that thing, I flat out told you I was heated.
Oh, I know you came in real hot.
Yeah, I was not happy, and of course now I'm laughing about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
But
so
again, that's why I feel like it's important to have someone who can kind of call you out on it, because I mean, you called me out on it a couple times this week with stuff like, okay, so great, this situation is happening, like, really looks like you can only go up from there. So what's the problem?
I mean, of course, I can hear tons of people right now just screaming like, "No, something can always get worse." And I'm like, "Oh no, it can."
Yeah.
I mean, you're wrong. I could totally stir up a hornet's nest with what I'm going to go do here. I can. It could happen, but I really don't. 99% of the time, the worst thing that could happen is I'll be right where I'm at. But it kind of goes in that whole thing too. Like, I mean, we talk about going and asking somebody something from somebody. I mean, if you never ask, you're going to get that. You got your answer. You got your answer without even asking the question.
Mm-hmm.
If you do ask, you could get in the same spot you're in, or you might get what you need.
Yeah.
And I'm not even great at that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just got to constantly work on it. I think the biggest thing I run into on with people is I'm just like, try to do something to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
You can dwell on it all you want, but let's just try to do something that might make it better.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
And with that, super light, total show. Let's get out of here.
We're
And
just
stop,
real fun today.
let's get out of here and stop talking about feelings. Such feelings.
Yeah, not a feeling person.
Yeah.
Getting better. But yeah, so